Hello, welcome back to the United Mates Football Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Keitel, and joining me in LA, as always, from back in our hometown of London, is my co-host. Hiya, Joe. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Kyle. I'm not appreciating the Sporting Lisbon top. Obviously, with me being a Spurs fan, that wasn't the best result for us last night. But there we go. Very funny, very funny.
I hadn't thought about that. I just threw it on.
Cool.
Joe and I are both very excited because, as usual, we have a special guest joining us on the podcast today as well. Today's guest managed to play for clubs across every level of the Football League, as well as abroad in Scotland and the Netherlands. He also played internationally for Wales, helping them famously reach the semi-finals of Euro 2016. And he managed to do all of this before retiring from the professional game at the age of 29. Joe and I are 28 for reference and both still waiting on our first pro contracts. Since hanging up his playing boots, our guest has started his own CBD-based line of fitness products. We welcome Simon Church to United Mates Football Podcast. Simon, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast with us. Thanks very much for joining us. And how's it going, mate?
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, all good, thanks. All good.
Lovely. How's the weather over in England? I know on a energy level, given recent events, things have probably been a bit gloomy. Has the weather matched up to that, or is it sunny like it might be out here in LA?
It's not too bad today, is it? It's not too bad. It's hit and miss, like everything in this country. You just don't know what you're going to get, do you?
Absolutely. Speaking of unpredictable things, Joe had referenced the Lisbon kit that I had been wearing, and I guess bringing that back to Tottenham being unpredictable. Football was cancelled because of the Queen. We're not going to talk about that too much, but despite football being cancelled, Spurs still did manage to lose 2-0 away at Sporting Lisbon yesterday, so I can't complain too much. But Joe, what's going on? What's going on with Spurs at the moment?
I did see quite a funny stat that Spurs were the first English team or something to lose under the King Charles era or something really stupid like that, which is quite funny. But yeah, I don't know. We were due a loss. I think we've had a good start to the season. Performances haven't been great, so I trust Conte to kind of go back to the drawing board, maybe change a couple of things here and there. But it's okay. We're going to be all right. I'm pretty confident of that. But Simon, as Kai said, we're delighted to be joined by you. And whenever we have a guest on this podcast, we always start with an icebreaker question, just a kind of silly question to kind of get things started. So sometimes we look into people's social media accounts, but today we're actually it's just related to your name, Simon. There's obviously there's a famous game called Simon Says. I think we've all played it when we were a child. At some point or other. But our question for you, and we'll give you some time to think about it, is what is your favorite party game? So I'm going to go to Kai first, who will answer it. Simon can have a little think as Kai answers. But yeah, Kai, what's your favorite party game, Kai?
My gut is telling me to go for Pass the Parcel. It's a classic, and there's a bit of a playmaker, passing and whatnot. So Pass the Parcel. We'll go with that. How about you, Joe?
There was a game at university. This is basically just drinking, to be honest, but it was quite a fun game where that song Roxanne by Police, where half the room has to drink every time Roxanne is said, half the other room has to drink every time Red Light is said. Basically just an excuse to drink, but that was always good fun before a night out. I enjoyed that. But Simon, you've had a bit, not admittedly lots of time to think, but has any party games come to mind?
When we've had like dinner parties in the past, Cards of Humanity I enjoy a lot, especially after a few drinks. Uno, I don't think that's really a party game. I think that's just a game in general. But I love Uno, and the kids love Uno as well.
Yeah, a couple of belters there. Cards Against Humanity definitely gets pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a good
very humorous and very kind of dark humor, which is always a favorite of mine. Speaking of cards, I guess, Simon, before we jump into a bit more about your actual career, did you pick up many cards throughout your playing days?
Do you know what? I got sent off twice. I think I've got a few yellow cards, but the one time I got sent off, I got a yellow card while I was warming up. The referee gave away a penalty. It was silly, and I got right in the linesman ear while I was warming up. And he ran over and booked me, and then I come on and scored the winner, and jumped in the crowd, and then got a second yellow, so I got sent off. So but I missed Boxing Day games, so happy days.
So you got to party as hard as you liked on Christmas. That worked out in the end, I guess. But yeah, moving away from card games and yellow and red cards, but sticking with football, whenever we have guests on, we like to kind of start by getting a flavor for what it was that got them caught up in the world of football, made them fall in love with the beautiful game in the first place. So taking things back to your childhood, Simon, what are some memories that you have of playing or watching football or supporting a club that really helped solidify your love for the beautiful game in the first place?
Yeah, I think it was just early on, probably school, three or four, five, just playing with the mates. And as soon as I started kicking a ball, I just got obsessed. I started playing. I got scouted at the age of 7 for Wycombe Wanderers, which was like my local club growing up. It's something that I was just obsessed with. I was a really heavy Man United fan. That came from my dad. It is what it is. And yeah, Wycombe Wanderers was like my local club, so we used to get down there as much as possible, and yeah, just got obsessed with it. I just loved the game. I felt like I was, something. It just came naturally, and I just wanted to play it all the time. And the love for that kind of grew and grew and grew until I probably made it professional, where it just kind of left quite quickly and turned into kind of the realization of what the game is.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess, yeah, like you said, when you make that switch from a fan or an amateur to a professional, you start to view things in a different way. But going back actually to the time when you were in the academy at Wycombe, I guess at a very young age, it looks like at the age of 14, you made the move to Reading, and it looks like it was part of the Nathan Tyson transfer to Wycombe. Is that true? Was it sort of part of a deal? Was that sort of something Wikipedia tells me? Is there truth in that?
There is truth in that. Something at the time I wasn't aware of. I mean, I was only young.
Yeah,
Didn't care about that. I don't think my dad at the time knew too much about it. It was obviously the politics of football going on, but I didn't care, because I think I can always remember I played my last game for Wycombe Wanderers, which was like Colchester away or something like that, 14. And then within my first week or two, I was playing against Arsenal at Highbury. As a 14-year-old, and I just knew, this is a big step up. And I don't know, I don't know the ins and outs of that deal, but I'm glad it was done. And the step up to Reading was a huge boost, because I was able to play with better players against better players, and just progressed my career when I was younger. From accelerated it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it was certainly a step up even at that young age. And I guess Reading geographically is close to Wycombe, but as you said, obviously Wycombe was your hometown. Was it tricky kind of moving clubs? Like, did you have to move at all, or could you kind of commute from where you were living? Did it actually not affect things too much from that kind of perspective?
I think logistically, my dad made a lot of sacrifices to kind of take me there. But yeah, I think it was just an instant kind of realization, playing against Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, rather than, Colchester and Swindon and these kind of teams. No disrespect, but the step up was pretty drastic. And yeah, I just loved it. It's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be playing against, Chelsea, playing at the training grounds, and, being around it gives you that buzz, especially as a young kid.
Well, no, it sounds fantastic. And I'm quickly just going to let my girlfriend on that note. One second.
I think while Joe runs off, I'll commend you for including Spurs in that group of teams and not lumping them in with Colchester and whatnot.
It was close. I did think about it, but
didn't want Joe to feel left out.
No, he's riding the wave at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, his girlfriend's just showing off. Happy days.
Yeah, well, hopefully she will. I've left the door open for her, so should be okay. So obviously, Simon, as we just said, you made the move to Reading at a young age, and things obviously were going well at Reading, because between 2007 and 2009, you were sent on a number of loan moves to sort of teams in the Football League, I guess, to get your first taste of professional football. So I guess it looks like you went on about 4 or 5 loan moves before kind of really breaking into that Reading team. How important was that period for you? Do you really kind of put that down to really developing your game?
Yeah, massively. I think it was so important. I think at the time, I just made my Reading debut, but they were in the Premier League, and I had, Kevin Doyle, Leroy Lita, Dave Kitson, Longy. I had a lot of people in front of me. I was never going to get a chance. And, I went to League One. I went with Crewe. I went with Yeovil, Leyton Orient, Wickham. All different kind of experiences. For example, Yeovil was struggling in League One. Really old school, really, I had to move out there, the middle of nowhere, and just learn about, really old school kind of football in the dressing room is old school. It was tough. I didn't play that much, and I had to kind of learn how to cope with that. And then going to Leyton Orient, I was playing every week, doing really well. And off the back of that, I got recalled and played in the semi-final of the playoffs. So each experience was a good one. I mean, I got sent off at Wickham. It was in League Two. It was my home club. Went back. Didn't really have a good time, but I thought it's League Two. I've got to go in hard, and got sent off, which wasn't great. Broke my hand. It was just awful. So loads of different experiences, but I think having those experiences at 18 to 19 on top of the Wales under 21 games, it kind of gave me a really, really good base. And I think nowadays, if you're not playing first team football by the age of 19, 20, you just won't have a chance, or it's near on impossible to kind of build a career for yourself unless you're, the one-off cases that kind of break through a bit later.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like you can obviously be in an academy with a really fantastic technical setup, but at the end of the day, unless you get that kind of learning on the job experience playing against men who are kind of trying to earn a paycheck before you get to, maybe your 20s, you might have missed out. So clearly those loan spells did the trick. And so we're going to focus a little bit more on Reading now. And you broke into the Reading team during the 2009-10 campaign, and you managed to score 10 goals in the league that season. What do you put that success down to, given that, as we were talking about, up until this point, the highest level that you played at was League One, and then suddenly you're kind of scoring goals for fun in the Championship, and you even scored against Liverpool in the FA Cup that year as well. So what was it that clicked for you during this spell?
I think it was just momentum, and I think momentum in football is such a big thing. It's it's not really spoken about, especially as a striker. I think you have to play games, you have to score goals, and you've got to be confident. And I think at the time I had some bad loan spells, but then on the back end of that, I had a really good loan spell. I was doing really well with the under-21s with Wales. I was the first person to score against England. I scored 3 against England in 2 games, and it kind of like the momentum was building. I could feel it. I was then captain in the 21s, and then thought I will get my chance. Everyone at the club was always positive about, I will get my chance. And that season after, I had a really good back end of the season. Missed out on getting promoted, and then played pretty much most of the games that season, and learned a lot. It was really good. I'll probably say I peaked at 20.
I probably peaked at 13, so don't feel too bad about it.
I think my Sunday league career is still yet to peak, still holding out for a bit of hope, but one day maybe. But you look, Keitel mentioned it, Simon, that 09-10 season obviously was personally a great one for you, but obviously for the next 2 seasons you'd play a really big part in the Reading team, especially actually in the year where they would get promoted again back up to the Premier League. So my question for you is, it's probably not the best topic for you, but obviously Reading went up, you'd been a big part of the team, but then you didn't really get the opportunity to play in the Premier League for Reading. So how much of was it a shock for you when they kind of sent you out on loan to Huddersfield, or was it something that the manager had kind of sort of warned you about in the summer was likely to happen?
No, definitely not in the summer. I mean, it was difficult. I always felt like the season after that first season, I didn't have a great season. There was loads of stuff that I kind of had to deal with on a personal level, which I didn't really tell anyone about, and it did affect me. And I think that's that season where we got promoted. I was starting to become, I was playing regularly for Wales. I was starting pretty much every game. And yeah, sometimes you feel when you come through the academy, you get treated differently to people that get brought in, and that's just football. You have to get on with that. But I thought, off the back of some of the performances, some of the goals I scored, I certainly deserved a chance to play in the Premier League after being at the club for so long and being a part of it. And in the summer, I had a good pre-season. I was probably top goal scorer in pre-season, and it all came down to kind of politics. And maybe it was a bit naive from my front as well, but I think I deserved more of an opportunity. I did get shipped into the reserves and the under-18s because of politics, really, rather than performance or anything else. And I know that myself, and it's difficult to kind of admit that, because I think if I look back over my career, what's the one resentment I have? And that's not playing in the Premier League, where I feel like I probably deserve. Maybe I'm not going to tear the Premier League up, but I felt like, that's one thing that I can look back and say I've played in the Premier League. But yeah, it was what it was. Took me a bit of time to be allowed to go out on loan, and to be honest, my head was all over the place. I had an awful loan at Huddersfield, hated it, and come back, wasn't in the 25. Could have gone somewhere else, didn't happen. And then, yeah, unfortunately, after being at the club and having so many good memories, it kind of ended on such a downer. But you know what? That's football, unfortunately. I had to learn that quite early, and no one owes you anything in the game. They say about loyalty, and I don't want to come across bitter at all, because I had some amazing times, and Reading's such a good club, but kind of opened my eyes up to the other side of football. And when I was saying earlier about the realization of what football is and being a professional footballer, and yes, you have amazing moments that you won't experience outside of it or off the pitch. The experience that I had on the pitch, I cannot mimic anywhere else in life, apart from my children. But again, it's different. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of things that you kind of have to deal with that people won't appreciate too much. And even if they do think it, they'll say, well, you're on this amount of money, you're a professional footballer, how can you be so negative about it? It's not even negative. It's something that you worked your whole life for, you dedicated your whole life for, and you just want to play on the weekend. And the Premier League's the pinnacle, and if that gets taken away from you, it's disappointing. But yeah, definitely, it was definitely an experience for sure.
Well, speaking of another pinnacle that you managed to reach quite early in your career, we're going to chat a bit about your international career for Wales, who you qualify for through your Welsh grandparents, I reckon. And you got your first call up to the Wales senior squad in May 2009. So chronologically, we're kind of going back before a little bit of the success that you had with the Reading first team, because at the time, I think you would have been on loan at Leyton Orient, who the internet tells me that you joined on my 15th birthday, but I'm definitely digressing quite a lot right now. At the time, Simon, were you expecting the call up from the Wales point at this point, kind of point in your career? Because you'd been tearing it up for the under-21s and captaining, as you've mentioned, but from your club football kind of career at that point, was it a bit of a surprise to be called up to the Wales national team, the senior squad?
It was that early, to be honest. I'll never forget, I received a letter from John Toshak. So John Toshak never had a mobile phone or anything like that. So I wasn't expecting it. I heard maybe, if I carried on going, I might get an opportunity of breaking through at some stage, because some of the other players in the 21s were playing and they broke in. So I was half expecting it, but I got a letter through saying, we want to join. Played 45 minutes, I think, against Estonia. And then what I think I really impressed in training, and I was impressing with Reading, and I just started playing a lot of games, and absolutely love playing for Wales. It was such international football was something I dreamt of, and it sounds a bit cringy and cliche, but when you're playing international football, it's just on a totally different level. You're playing against the best players in the best stadiums, for your country. It's incredible.
How early on did the dream of playing international football become focused on playing that football for Wales, as opposed to England, who, at a young age, you still would have been in contention to, at the very least, kind of be competing for spots on the youth teams?
Yeah, I think. Well, my grandparents, especially my granddad, who passed away probably a couple of years before I got. He was a real passionate Welshman, and at the time I got approached by Wales, and my dad, he's kind of half Welsh, but he's more Welsh because of his dad and his mum. So yeah, it was kind of like a no-brainer really for me. I absolutely loved it. I would have loved to have done it. And before my dad passed at the age of 20. He was able to see me play for Wales. So again, that was kind of a big thing, quite a big deal for us as a family and for me personally. So yeah, that was kind of the factors behind making the decision as early as I did.
And you managed to do it at such a young age, which is very impressive. But just kind of, you got that letter from Toshak. Was it, I don't know if it would have been handwritten or maybe emailed and signed off, but either way, just kind of walk us through some of the emotions and thoughts and feelings that you had in the early days of joining up with the senior squad. You're training with the likes, I'm assuming, of Gareth Bale, Aaron Ramsey, probably Craig Bellamy, and some other great names too. What was that like?
Yeah, it was daunting. I'm not going to lie. It was, I made within probably about 6 months of playing for Leyton Orient, doing well, not knowing which way my career was going to go. I was starting regularly for Reading, getting called up for Wales consistently, and like you said, I'm playing up front with Bellamy, who I'm not gonna lie, shit myself every time I played with him, because his intensity and desire to win just kind of opened my eyes up. And people don't realise how hard he trained. And just to play against him, someone who I watched growing up, and there's not just that, the senior players, Gabardon, Earnshaw, James Collins, we had some really good Premier League players that were playing week in, week out. And I think for me, that's where I wanted to put myself, was amongst the best. And then obviously Gareth kind of turned into what he turned into. And as I mentioned before, the levels of playing international football compared to the Championship or the Premier League, it just brings your level up even more, because you feel like, right, this is the biggest stage. I've got out my game. If I don't up my game, then I'm going to be out of it. I'm going to lose the kind of taste for it. And we always knew eventually we'd get a chance of playing in a major tournament.
Well, it's good you mentioned a major tournament, because there was a major tournament you were a part of for Wales, and it just happened to be Euro 2016. Obviously an absolutely, incredible tournament from a Welsh perspective. You got to the semi-final. I know you played about half an hour in that semi-final against the eventual winners, Portugal, of course, and came on against Russia as well. Obviously, as Kai mentioned before, the likes of Bale and Ramsey were in that team, Joe Allen as well, some really quality players. But how important was the manager Chris Coleman throughout that whole tournament? Did he really kind of set the tone and create the morale that really led to that success? What do you put down that fantastic campaign to, given you were there and part of it?
I think it came from a number of years building up to this kind of stage. The core of the team had all played together for a long time. We grew up playing together, and everything just clicked. We actually started off not great in the campaign, and we missed out on a couple of campaigns before, but we could feel we were edging ourselves closer and closer. And for whatever reason, we just clicked. We clicked with the fans. We started building momentum. We weren't singing and dancing about we're going to go and do this and do that. We just got on with our business. And I think, Chris Coleman and his staff created kind of a culture where previously people were dropping out if they had little niggles and things like that. But we didn't want to miss out. We wanted to be part of it. We always wanted to play. We always wanted to be involved. And I've never seen a squad so supportive when you're not playing. So if you're not playing, the squad was the squad, and he created that. I think he created that for his man management. Like, I would have run through a brick wall for him, just how he was as a man manager. You know, he was great. He understood it as a player. He could have a laugh and a joke. He could let you do things, but at the same time, he'd give you a bollocking, and he wouldn't let you get away with things that maybe you shouldn't have. And it just created like this group that we had was the best group that I've ever played with. And that's saying a lot, because we had such a good group at Reading when we won the league. But the Welsh team and be part of that setup because we were away for 7 weeks. People forget that we're locked in a hotel for near enough 7 weeks where we don't see our family too much. And it was just one of the best times of my life. It was just incredible I'll go back and say, like, when I was younger, dreaming of playing in, you know, the Euros or the World Cup, something we've all watched growing up, and to be there and just the whole setup and the travel and the games and everything, it was just incredible to be part of. And Chris Coleman said to me at the beginning, you will get your chance, like, because of how loyal you've been to me over the years, you will get your chance to play in the Euros. I believed him straight away. Sometimes I don't believe managers when they say stuff, because most of the time it's just waffle, but I believed him. And yeah, he stuck me on for the Russia game. And then obviously in the semi-finals, we chasing the game, and yeah, just got to run about a little bit.
Sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's a bad joke about Chris Coleman's nickname, but on another note, still kind of trivial matters. Did you manage to get any rounds in with Balo and Bellamy, two keen golfers?
Yeah, we used to play golf quite a bit. So we'd always try, and when we have a bit of downtime, because the international weeks are normally 10 days to 2 weeks. So it's quite intense. We're all together all the time. So probably one afternoon throughout the whole trip, we'd always have golf and get in there. And yeah, we've got some good golfers in the group. I love golf myself personally, so yeah, we used to love that. And when we were in the Euros, we did it as well in Denard, I think it was. Again, just had some good times.
It sounds like a fantastic experience, the whole thing. And obviously on the pitch, there was a lot of success and a lot for the nation of Wales to cheer about along the way. So speaking of tournaments and Wales looking forward to this World Cup coming up, just briefly, what do you make of Wales' chances in Qatar? Is this kind of team equipped to have as much success as the nation saw in 2016, albeit, you know, the difference between the World Cup and the Euros? Or was that 2016 squad kind of the peak of this current football generation's talents?
Without being biased, it's obviously going to be a peak, but I mean, they did really well, to be fair, to get to the Euros the following campaign and to get to where they got to, you know, and now they're going to the World Cup, first time in I can't remember how many years, since 60 something. And yeah, what an incredible opportunity. I mean, for us, when we went to the Euros, we were underdogs. There was no pressure, there was no expectation on us. And I think that's the same going into the World Cup. And I think that's a good place to be, especially for the guys, because there's guys in that changing room that were part of 2016, and they can bring that kind of passion and experience of doing well in major tournaments. And yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to be the same atmosphere, and they didn't have it the last time through the Euros because of, you know, all the stuff that was going on. And I guess it's going to be kind of similar. The atmospheres aren't going to be the same as what it was in France, but you're playing in the World Cup. I don't think it's going to take too much for the boys to get up for it, and the nation. And, you know, playing in front of the fans, I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff and the fans singing before the game. It is honestly, it's incredible.
Yeah, if there's any group of traveling fans that can kind of rouse the spirits and the morale of a team, it's going to be the Welsh fans. Yeah, they've shown it across every sport. To be fair, that they follow. They're very passionate supporters, and I can only imagine, yeah, the thrill that you get sort of playing in front of thousands and thousands of them. Onto your later club career now, moving away from Wales, Simon, and after a few seasons in the Championship with Charlton and MK Dons, and then some shorter stints at a few other teams, you would have had to make the tough and probably at that age quite an unexpected decision to retire at 29 because of a recurring hip injury. So in those final years of your playing career, what sort of impact was the hip injury directly having on your performances on the pitch, or did it kind of come on all of a sudden, and then quite quickly afterwards it was game over?
No, it's something I've always kind of had to deal with, and it progressively got worse and worse. Probably at the age of 22, 23, I started feeling, really bad after games. I was stiffer than, an IKEA wardrobe most times, and it was a problem I kind of had to just get on with. I never used to miss training. Just load me up with a load of pills and get on with it. And as I said, it got progressively worse to the point I'll never forget. Who were we playing against? Northern Ireland in the Euros, and he told me to warm up. And it's at the Parc des Princes. I think it was the game before the quarters. He told me to warm up, and I'm like limping on the side. I'm thinking, please don't stick me on, because my hip is like, I'm gonna look awful. And then, after that campaign, I went to Holland, and we started training on AstroTurf pitch, and their ground was AstroTurf, and it just absolutely ruined me. I played against Feyenoord, and 20 minutes before the game, the physio, I always used to get kind of try and loosen up my hips, and I had a routine, worked really hard and trying to stay supple. I just couldn't. And then he tried moving my hip before the game. He was like, what the fuck is this? He was like, well, I couldn't move. And within 20 minutes, I can remember I had a shot, and it obviously went over, and I just fell to the ground, and I just couldn't get up. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And yes, I had quite a serious operation on my hip to try and stimulate something, but I was just chasing the dream after that. And it was difficult. It was difficult because my head was telling me to do stuff, and my body wouldn't allow me to do it. And I was always breaking down with injuries. And luckily enough, the surgeon turned around and said, I'd advise you not to play anymore if you want, a decent quality of life, children and all this kind of stuff. And it's the worst news I've ever kind of had, but it was kind of a relief at the same time as well for my body, because I would have carried on trying as much as I could.
Yeah, I imagine that must be so difficult. Like you said, obviously there's the dream of being a footballer and you want to continue, but ultimately you don't want to do too much harm to your body. And at least kind of you had a really, a lot of fantastic things happen in your career. So at least you could sort of retire with your head held high. But you just mentioned now that brief stint in the Netherlands playing for Roda JC, and obviously that didn't sound too great, training on the AstroTurf and kind of the injuries you had. But obviously playing in the Eredivisie, albeit for a short spell, what was that experience like? Given you played for Wales, they have very passionate supporters. The Dutch fans are known obviously for also really loving the game and generating a lot of atmosphere. How did the Eredivisie compare to the Football League?
Well, I think, it comes to the stage where after the Euros, I had to leave MK Dons anyway, because they got relegated to League One. Off the back of the Euros, I wanted kind of a new challenge. I was sick of the Championship. I was sick of English football, and I had a few offers from abroad, which didn't really materialise. And I knew the coach at Roda, and I thought Eredivisie, if you score goals as a striker, it's a great platform. And I didn't really know too much about the league. But once I got there, we played, who did we play against? Feyenoord, PSV. Can't remember the other two, Willem II or something. And playing at PSV, playing at Feyenoord, I was like, okay, I can see the pull. But the quality was really, really good. Really good. It was different tempo, different style of playing, which I probably suited as well. I enjoyed it. It was a lot more possession based. It was a lot more tactical. It was such I think it's four or five games in, and that was my season done. So I never really got the chance to get going. I was learning the language. Well, my family hated it there, but I didn't mind it. But it was just a new experience. I wanted to experience playing abroad, because again, playing in the Championship is, most of the boys would turn around and say they hate playing in the Championship because it's constant and it is like a grind. It's a grind. Like, people think, how can you say that? But Saturday, Tuesday, and your body's an absolute mess. So I just wanted kind of, a new experience. And I'm glad I went. Just unfortunately, I didn't really get to make the most of it.
Just dwelling on your experience in the Netherlands before we move on, I've got a quick kind of this or that. Dutch delicacies versus British delicacies, which you prefer? Maybe you've had the chance to sample them during your time in Holland. So first one up is going to be English beer or Dutch beer.
Dutch beer.
Okay, that was a strong, confident Dutch beer. So 1-0 to the Netherlands right now against the UK. Have you come across stroop waffles?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so we're going with sounds like you might like them. Going with stroop waffles or scones, however you prefer to pronounce it.
Waffles, blow them out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2-0 to the Netherlands. Sticking with food right now, I think they put definitely in Belgium, and I think in the Netherlands too, quite big on mayonnaise on the fries. So we're going for mayo or ketchup?
Ketchup for me.
Okay, the UK's pulled one back, 2-1. And then just last off again, kind of, I think, notorious with regards to the city of Amsterdam, where you weren't necessarily playing your football, but who knows if this kind of bleeds into the wider culture of life in the Netherlands. Public transport would be the UK, or cycling would be the Netherlands?
Cycling.
Okay, so quite a bit of a route for the Netherlands here.
Do you know what? I lived in Maastricht, which was such a nice city, like clean, tidy. Food was great, people were great. I absolutely loved it. It was just a shame I didn't really get to experience it to its fullest. So it was just the driving and the language. I just couldn't get my head around it. They've got like 5 words for the same word, and it's just like mind blowing.
Yeah, it's a lot of shush sounds from what I kind of have heard. Yeah.
Yeah, a bizarre language, a fantastic one, but a bizarre one. But yeah, I guess we'll move on now to kind of a bit what you've done, Simon, sort of beyond football. I guess it's very loosely related to the Netherlands. Obviously, you've got a CBD company. Cannabis is big out in Amsterdam, but in all seriousness, I know that CBD Performance, which is something I think you started it with someone you met on a podcast, so we can discuss our business idea after this. But I know one of the things that you're one of the sort of missions of the company is to kind of get rid of this stigma behind CBD, especially within the context of sports. And I know with your products, there's the thing where the THC is not in it, the psychoactive part of cannabis, and that's all very important. But how do you feel at the moment about sort of the general reaction in sport to CBD products? Are you seeing a lot of positive reactions to what you're doing, or is there still a way to go before it's kind of universally accepted in the world of football and beyond?
Yeah, there's a huge stigma around it still. I mean, we're getting a lot better than when I started. I kind of found it. There's no tie to being in Holland, obviously. I used to come down from my apartment and there just used to be cafes everywhere. But yeah, the whole reason why I got into this or researched it, there was a hell of a lot of research. There's a hell of a lot of kind of science behind why I started it. And I was addicted to painkillers, sleeping tablets, and most professional athletes are. And it's not spoken about enough. It's kind of brushed under the carpet because it's a quick win. No one cares. No one cares about the effects. It's literally take that, shut up, and be ready for tomorrow because you've got to play, you've got to train. And that's kind of, it's general life as well. Most people do the same. It's like a quick win. I'll block it out, try and get some sleep, or try and block that pain, and I'll move on with it. And got to the stage where I was addicted. It was having such adverse effects on my body and my hip, I had to recover from. I was coming towards the end of my career, but I was in so much pain. Like I would get home and I'd be like, I couldn't get out of the car, I couldn't go up the stairs. So I had to try and find an alternative kind of way. And CBD came off the anti-doping list, so I looked into it a lot. But at the time, it was just kind of a niche one tincture kind of oil. Tried it, had a massive positive effect on me. I was able to sleep. I was able to wean off any kind of pharmaceutical stuff. And yeah, we saw a huge gap in the market for this. And yeah, going back to your actual question, was there's a lot of demand for it. The problem we've got, and we've got a lot of professional athletes taking it, we do our very best to kind of batch test everything, make sure we're transparent with everything. And we've had so much positive feedback from it. But the regulators and everyone like that, again, it comes down to politics, and money. We've got our products tested with the main doping agency. They won't endorse it though. So it's passed all the testing, but they won't endorse it. And that's a problem where we're at with sport in general, really, like that, you know, it doesn't get spoken about. We are effectively drug addicts as athletes because we have to have these stuff to pacify us. And when it becomes negative on your body because you've taken it so long, no one cares. You're already gone. You're out of there. And that's why people turn to alcohol, all this kind of stuff to try and mask these different issues.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of fumbling around for my CBD kind of spread that's like a topical kind of ointment for aches and pains. So I'm definitely a subscriber to CBD and some other chemicals too, but can definitely vouch for CBD and the medicinal effects that it does have on my body. I can claim. But just a question for you, I think, before we wrap this up, Simon. And as a footballer turned entrepreneur, do you find that other players, for instance, who are building brands away from the pitch, whether or not they're still playing or have retired, are maybe as passionate about their business and, for instance, with you, CBD, as you are? Or do you think that a lot of players, for instance, might just be kind of attaching their name to somebody else's product or somebody else's passion in order to secure another source of income?
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think a huge thing for athletes is we have such a small window of opportunity of earning potential, and people forget, you know, we have to sacrifice so much to kind of make it into that window. You know, we don't have any qualifications. We normally don't have any other interest in anything else apart from being a footballer. And unfortunately, to get to that level, you have to make those sacrifices and you have to be that dedicated. But there's not enough conversation around, you know, the transition from being an athlete to, you know, it's near enough frowned upon when other players have got businesses, because if you have a poor performance, people say, well, stop spending so much time on your business. But that's absolute bollocks, because what do you expect a player to do when they come home from training or after a game? They've got an opportunity to build a brand, and a lot of players don't realise, you know, they've got a great platform, they have, you know, good resources, a great network of people, and yeah, just getting that kind of changing that idea of and the mentality of, you know, you've got so long where you're resting at home, not doing anything. Build something for your future, because like me, I went at 29, I didn't plan for me to retire at 29, but there's so many people that have fallen out of the game now. I've got friends now at 32, 33. They can't get a club. They play Premier League and Champions League. And they kind of have to think, right, I've got to take the early step to think, I've got to move into something else. And yeah, whether you're moving into a career or something like that, you can always learn to do something or build a business or whatever. There's so much resources and opportunity out there. I think we've just got to change the mentality to kind of start searching for it.
And on that note, you know, inherently from the outside, you can only assume that all footballers are very driven people with the amount of time and dedication that they have to put in on the training pitch over years and years and years to just have the opportunity to maybe go pro. Who knows if it will even work out. But going through what you've gone through, having to deal with injuries, having your professional playing career, the end of it kind of taken away from you, on some levels, are you at all kind of glass half full, thankful for not having your head so far down the just football is life kind of hole and having other interests and other things that you can devote your time and attention towards?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a bit of a blessing that I always had kind of an interest in something else, an interest in stuff outside of it. I wish I'd started earlier. And I think a lot of people say the same. And also it's the realization of how difficult it is to make that transition, because not only if you have a focus on it and everything else, you can see why the statistics are so high for, divorce, gambling, alcoholism, like all this kind of stuff, bankruptcy, because we just don't have a clue about, coming out of a routine where you're told where to be, what to eat, where, whatever. It's just basically from the age of 16 all the way through to you retire, you know what you're doing, and you get financial advisors, all this kind of stuff. But can't trust anyone these days. At the end of the day, you've got to take responsibility for yourself. And I think things are starting to change now slightly, but yeah, the conversations aren't frequent or kind of enough. There's certainly different things in place now that people are trying to kind of promote these things to just change that mentality a little bit, just have a little think about what else is out there.
Well, it certainly feels like the narrative is changing. I know a lot of footballers are sort of starting businesses, and certainly I think, people should be, celebrating the fact footballers are doing it rather than not doing it. But yeah, obviously we wish you the best with CBD Performance, and yeah, hopefully it outsells Hal Robson-Carney's Turmeric Code product, another kind of a product from a former teammate of yours, and that's probably a fun little battle you have going there. But I feel like that's a fun time to end the podcast. As always, a big thank you to my co-host Keitel, not thank you for wearing that Sporting Lisbon top. That still hurts a bit, Kai. But from the both of us, a very special thank you to Simon. It's been really great chatting to you. We really appreciate you joining us this evening. And whenever we have a guest on, Simon, we always give them the chance to kind of just tell our listeners the best way they can keep up to date with everything you're doing, both personally and I guess business related too.
Yeah, probably best to have a look at I'm Rubbish at social media. Honestly, I'm absolute dinosaur. But yeah, any kind of social stuff, obviously the business, if you want to try our products, have a look at cbdperformance.com. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Enjoyed it.
An absolute pleasure, Simon. Thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you about football and about your life since as an entrepreneur, and with regards, in particular to CBD, that I think is on the up, and kind of hopefully is only a matter of time before clubs as an agent kind of like individually can be openly collaborating with, for instance, your business, and kind of providing CBD supplements to their players on a daily basis, and kind of making it part of the recovery routine, because it's got a lot of medicinal benefits. So best of luck with that. For our listeners, if you enjoyed this podcast, please do subscribe wherever it is that you like to stream your favorite podcasts. Just search for United Mates Football Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our handle is @UnitedMatesFP. If you feel like putting some faces to these voices, then you can find us on YouTube. Look for United Mates Football Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. And then for all of that content and more in one place, check out our website, unitedmatesfp.com. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.